Apa kabar teman-teman? This is Dewi Sungai with 816 Creative. You're listening to Geno Ray's podcast, Native as I Can Be. Mitakuye Oyasin.
Who's the podcast host that you love the most? Coming to you live from coast to coast. Call me Thunderlip, Spaceman, or G. It's just me being native as I can be.
What's up, everybody? It's Geno Ray. Some of you eagle-eyed viewers are going to say, wait a minute, is he wearing the same shirt he wore last week's episode? Well, as a matter of fact, I'm not, because this is my second episode today. So it's not a continuity error or what have you. Today, my very, very special guest is someone I've known probably 15 years or so. His name is Kenji Nitta. He's been working in the ministry for 25 years. He's been on the show before. His first appearance way back in the day, back in like 2019, was one of my best reviewed episodes. One of my, even when there's time apart, still one of my good friends, Kenji Nitta from Spokane, Washington. How's it going?
Going well, brother. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so we go back quite a ways. We used to work together in Boise, Idaho, at a little publishing company. And we spent a lot of time shooting the breeze in your office and making Fred Meyer trips for junk food or Los Betos for breakfast burritos. A lot of food involved in our relationship, but always a good conversation. He helped me do a couple videos for different projects, and we've had a long ride.
Yeah, when I heard you say 15 years, it kind of blew my mind. I can't believe time's gone that fast.
I know, man. I left Boise. It's been almost 10 years now. So,
wow.
Yeah. So you're back in Spokane now. What are you up to in Spokane?
Yeah, pastoring a church up here. Let's see. When I left Boise, I went to Eastern Oregon, pastored a church there in Ontario for 5 years. Went to California, pastored a church there for 2 years. And now I've been pastoring a church for the last 6 years here in Spokane again, which is nice because my wife and I both graduated high school from this area. So this kind of feels like home here and has mountains and rivers and outdoorsy stuff. So it fits our vibe.
And a little bit of an edge, if you're familiar with the Spoke-Compton vibe. I love
another one I heard is Spokanistan.
Spokanistan. I haven't heard that one. You recently, well, let me not get ahead of myself. So 25 years in the ministry, what originally called you to it? I know we've covered this before, but you can give us kind of an abridged version.
Sure. Yeah. So I didn't grow up in the church. My ancestry is my dad was first generation in the U.S. from Tokyo. And then my mom grew up here. She's kind of, that side of my family is all rednecks from Oklahoma. And they came over out west during the Dust Bowl in the 1920s. But they stayed rural, so they stayed pretty oaky, And so her and my dad got together one night at a bar. It was God's will. And then I was born, 9 months later. They tried to make it work. He kind of took off when I was about 5. But I didn't grow up in the church. So I became a Christian when I was about almost 20 years old. And right when I became a Christian, I studied the Bible a lot. I was learning quite a bit. And I was leading a lot of my friends into Christianity and kind of building things up. And then, honestly, it was just kind of practical. Practical and mystical. The practical side is I realized someone asked me if I wanted to go to ministry, and I just asked what that was. And it turns out you can read the Bible and help people full time. I had no idea. So I was like, yeah, I'll do this full time. This is way more awesome than working at a cemetery, which is what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
And then the other one was kind of more mystical. I was asking God if I should do that. I was reading the Bible. There's a little story in the book of Jeremiah where he gets called to speak and try and help people. And I felt like that was God speaking to me. And so I decided at that point, I was going to get in the game, and that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your relationship? How much contact did you have with your dad after that?
So I talked to him once on the phone when I was about 8 or 9, I think, maybe a little older. It was
Mhm.
pretty short conversation. And then in 97, my half sister's mom, she's younger than me, so he had her in Montana afterwards. She called me to let me know he died of a heart attack in Alaska somewhere. And so
Wow.
that's all I had with my dad.
And so, yeah, so you were straight up single mom raised.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's hardcore. I don't think I knew that. Um,
Yeah, we were
and,
poor white trash, and then we moved into some housing projects in Kennewick. And so we lived with a bunch of, Mexican Americans. Most of them were illegals. So it
mhm,
was kind of an interesting growing up because I grew up without the dad, got into redneck culture, then moved into this, deep Chicano culture. Then when I was in my teens, I moved to Cheney, Washington, which is, kind of a more middle class. But, so yeah, I'm yellow, but I kind of grew up poor white trash. And
yeah. What's your what's your mom's relationship with religion like?
so it was kind of interesting with her. Um,
Is she passed on already?
what's that?
Is she still alive?
Nope, she passed 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we took care of her the last few months of her life. So
Okay.
yeah.
What's
But
her name?
she says she raises Christian, but me and my brother have no memory of that. I think she wishes she raises Christian.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I became a Christian, I think my brother had a little influence through his girlfriend, and my mom had cultural Christianity, but I was the first one who kind of went hardcore with it.
Yeah.
And eventually she, got back into it. But yeah, I think she was more Christian in name only.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she was real open minded. So she was kind of the black sheep of an already dysfunctional family. So when she was 16, she took off from the house and she spent the summer in Haight Ashbury, back in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I doubt she remembers much of the 70s at all. So that was kind of her vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she wasn't a real practicing Christian, but at times she was.
Yeah. Christian in name only. That's popular now. So she was ahead of the game.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
um, and is your brother half too, or is he your full
Yep.
brother? Okay.
So he's half Japanese as well, but a different dad. So I think my mom got some yellow fever in the 70s. Had him first.
Yeah.
And what's interesting though is she moved to Japan. She met my brother's dad, moved to Japan, and had my brother in Japan. So he was born over there. And then she left Japan with him, had me a few years later. And on my birth certificate, she said my brother's father was my dad. I asked her about it later, but she didn't really explain why.
Right.
So my father's last name is actually Suzuki. So although you introduced me as Kenji Nitta, it should be Kenji Suzuki.
Oh man.
So it's a big old tangled web, my background. And then I have a brother and a sister who live in Japan I've never met from my dad before I came to the States.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I have a younger sister my dad had later in Montana.
Oh man. That's yeah, that's quite the tree. That happens with Laura's mom. She asks me pretty frequently, if I have any siblings, and I'm like, "Ah." Oh,
Yeah,
where do they live? And I'm like, wherever. I don't know.
exactly.
I've got like 4 on this side and 5 on this side. And some I've never, yeah. So I just go, oh, I got one that lives, yeah, like 10 minutes away. Or, yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know all that. Um, have you ever tried to make contact with the siblings in Japan when you went over there?
So my mom did. She speaks Japanese, and so she hired a detective over there to track him down. And I think she did, but I never got connected to them. And then my Japanese is very rudimentary. It's not good at all. My Spanish is better than my Japanese, ironically. So yeah, I've never really connected with them before. I'd like to, but hopefully it works out.
And those are older siblings or younger
Mhm.
siblings? Older.
Older.
And is their dad still alive or is he gone too?
Let's see. So we share dads, but different moms. So
Oh,
yeah.
no. Okay.
So he had them in Japan before he immigrated to the US.
Okay.
And then he had me after he got here, had my sister later, and I don't know, maybe had more. I have no idea.
Man, he's a player.
Yeah, totally. He was a rambling man.
Yeah.
What's funny about my dad is he immigrated because he was a great guitar player. And I kid you not, he wanted to be a huge country and Western music star.
Oh man, now
All
that would have been
Japanese, looks very Japanese.
yeah.
With a cowboy hat and the belt, he hardcore tried to make it happen.
Wow. Did he ever try that in Japan? Did he
Yeah,
try
he
to
was
do?
apparently he was reasonably successful in Japan,
Yeah.
but I think alcoholism kind of ran through the family over there, and he brought it
Mhm.
with him. And so basically, that's what it is. He did like lots of cocaine and stuff in the '70s too, but ultimately he drank himself to death.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which takes a long time,
yeah.
unfortunately, in some cases. But wow, I didn't know any of that stuff, man. That's cool. Or I don't know. I don't know about cool, but that's something I didn't know all that. So now you have 4 daughters and recently became a grandpa.
Yep.
And that's so amazing to me. How into the church have your kids been with you being in the position you've been in?
Yeah, kind of a mix. So we didn't really I didn't really shove it down the throat growing up, you know. I mean, I taught it to them, of course, because we
Hmm.
like being together with family, and being a pastor, we do church a lot. So,
Yeah.
let's see, my oldest daughter Kayla, she would identify as a Christian, but we adopted her later in life, and her life's just complicated. She's actually had 4 kids. She's about to have her 5th. So the grandbaby I just had is my first bio grandkid. Is close to.
Got it.
It's actually my
Okay.
5th grandbaby. So but she would say she's a Christian. My daughter Hope, she's a Christian as well. She's a more liberal, progressive Christian.
Hmm.
And then my next daughter Liliana, she's a Christian. And then my youngest daughter, she's pretty close to agnosticism, maybe leaning towards atheism.
Hmm.
Yeah, my youngest daughter is 20, so they're 20, 21, 22, and then my oldest is 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of a mix.
Hmm. Um, I was thinking what it would be like, and one of them just got married too recently, didn't they?
Yep. Yeah, my
Yeah.
daughter Hope got married just over a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking what it would be like to have, the purple belt in jujitsu as a father-in-law, but then I was like, wait, this is Kenji. He's probably not rolling up on the kid and like whispering some crazy shit into his ear about, like
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like your style at all. I
Well, it
wonder
hasn't
if
come to that yet, so.
okay. I don't know. I wonder if dads are still like that. That's sort of like the trope about the dad with the shotgun standing there at the prom picture and
Yeah,
if you lay a hand on my daughter, like that's so played out. Like I don't know if it's like that or not,
totally.
but um okay, so um but in addition to the ministry, you studied social and behavioral science. What's the uh what's the relationship there between those two things and how do they lend themselves to each other?
Mhm. So I was into philosophy a lot growing up. I barely graduated high school, but I would skip classes and read philosophy books in the library instead of going to class. I just
Yeah.
really like the subject. And philosophy and psychology actually overlap quite a bit. And so my first degree, my bachelor's, was social and behavioral studies. I was thinking of going into most of my ministry life. I've had a day job too, and I've done ministry in addition to that.
Mm,
This is one of the first times I've been full time pastor. So I was thinking of going into social work or counseling, and then I did end up going pastoring full time. So then my first master's from Gonzaga is in theology and leadership, and then I'm about to wrap up a second master's now in clinical mental health counseling. And so for me, the relationship is I like Christianity for its explanatory power over the world I see, and it really gets into human nature quite a bit.
mhm.
Um, and then I'm an evangelical Christian, which is a theologically conservative arm of the church. Sometimes politically conservative, sometimes not.
Yeah,
It's kind of a stereotype, but there's tons of progressive evangelical Christians as well. It's a
yeah.
pretty diverse group. But I felt like we had an underdeveloped what's called a theological anthropology, which is basically a study of what it means to be human and what it means to be a human who's living a fulfilled life, and kind of connecting that with religiosity, people's view on God, the relationship to God,
Mhm.
relationship to spirituality, even if it's just like a higher meaning or purpose in life. So a lot of these existential questions I've always been super fascinated by, in addition to consciousness and some of the old school psychology questions. So I think I was just a weirdo because I liked philosophy and psychology, and a lot of the psychologists and philosophers, kind of intertwine with religious ideas as well.
Right. Well, and they all seem to be dealing, uh, at least one thread I would think would be the conscious self, which would be, a lot of those philosophical questions were of the conscious self. And then if you're talking about a heaven and hell, you would not be talking about the physical body necessarily, but the conscious or the spiritual. I mean, yeah, I can definitely see the overlap, and why those things could all be bundled together into, I don't know, but yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Christianity too. I know there's some traditions in Christianity that really focus on believing the right things. So if you believe, you know, the if you believe the right propositions, God exists, evolution's false, whatever,
mhm,
whatever propositions you have, if you believe those intellectually, that kind of makes you a Christian. But there's most of Christianity would kind of look at it more like belief is important, but what's also important is behavior and
mm,
ethics and how you treat other people.
right.
And the main ethic that organizes a lot of Christian thinking is the ethic of love and how you care for other people and how you relate to other people. And
Hmm.
that's basically sociology and psychology as well.
Right. Yeah, totally. Uh, so, okay, this is a silly example, but with that sort of background and your views as a Christian and a philosopher and a, social behavior scientist expert, if you see somebody acting a fool in the grocery store and they leave their cart here and then they go wandering off and the cart's blocking the whole pathway, what goes through your head? Are you like everybody else where you're like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? How does he not realize that he left his cart here and he's wandering over here? Like, or is there like a Christian, uh forgiveness that pops in immediately?
Yeah. Well, I think ideally I would just say, I would stop and pray for him and wish him the best. But in reality, I'd probably just steal the Twinkies out of his cart to piss him off and then go on.
Yeah.
But no, the Christian approach would be something like humans are goal directed animals, and so my goal is just to be able to walk through the cart without some a-hole leaving the cart, blocking
Mm,
the aisle in the way.
yeah. Yeah.
But so because we always have goals in most situations, when we observe our surroundings, we tend to observe things as obstacles or tools that will help or hurt us towards those goals.
Hmm.
And so, unfortunately, we tend to view humans like that as well.
Yeah.
And one thing when you read the stories about Jesus in the Bible is he just never did that, which is interesting. He would stop and speak to people who were not important according to
Right.
cultural standards. He'd have the audacity to treat them as if they had infinite value as human beings made in God's image.
Mhm.
And so, he always saw the person and not the obstacle to whatever his goal was. And so I think, I mean, we call that love, but I think, or the old school word is charity,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think in an ideal situation, I wouldn't be offended. I wouldn't be frustrated. I would just realize the world is populated with other people who have their goals too.
Yeah.
And my existence isn't to be powerful enough to manipulate the situation to benefit my goals. It's to use whatever little strength I have to bless that person, make their life better, help them flourish. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think ideally, I mean, even the ethic in Christianity to love your enemies, which is kind of craziness. You just want the best for everybody. So
Right.
hopefully, ideally in that situation, I wouldn't be self-absorbed, but
Yeah.
I'd probably steal the Twinkies.
That's the Instagram clip right there.
Yeah.
Love everybody, but still the Twinkies. Um, yeah, I have a real hard time with that. I mean, traffic in Portland's crazy. I'm sure it's bad in Spokane too. And like,
Yeah.
there was a period where I was working quite a ways away, but I had to drive into Southeast Portland to drop Shay off because we got a discount at this daycare and drive like another half hour to my job. So like there was days I'm in the car over 3 hours round
Oh
trip.
man, that's
And
crazy.
I mean, and I was just like, I would just be boiling hot. And then I would get home and, I do all the cooking at my house. And like, especially in summer, like the oldest would be kind of just kicked back and chilling and, hey, what are you going to make for dinner? And I would just be, and so I've been
Yeah.
like, but trying to understand, and in the moment it's not easy, but trying to understand everybody's trying to get to where they're going. Nobody is trying to make this harder than it has to be.
Mhm.
And everybody has their own set of circumstances and what I have wanted when I was going through my hardest times, how would I have been maneuvering through that situation, and how would I have wanted people to act towards me?
Yeah.
But when somebody's not driving the way they're supposed to drive, it's real hard to get into that mindset, at least for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, but now I work closer, and I've done a lot of work on just myself and freeing myself of some of that kind of stuff, because you don't gain anything by carrying around that anger and resentment
Yeah.
towards people that you don't even know.
And I think anger is a good emotion because, it serves a purpose. I mean, emotions are a part of rationality. Like they try and give you information and they try and motivate you to act as well. So what anger I think usually tries to tell us is, somebody might be violating us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or maybe danger, that's more fear sometimes, but anger can mix in there. But it's
Mm-hmm.
trying to tell us that might be the case. And then what it does to us is it motivates us to punch stuff and break stuff. Because if
Mm-hmm.
someone's violating you, you need that strength to protect yourself or your family or whatever.
Yeah.
If someone home invades your house, anger is the appropriate response. Some people say anger is always a secondary emotion. Well, it probably should be primary in that situation.
Yeah.
And it helps you to beat someone's ass if they're trying to hurt your family.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. But so yeah, I get the impulse a lot just to be angry. Not because it's giving me information, but just the sheer brute strength it makes me feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretend, and it kills me earlier in life because it stresses me out. Sometimes that payoff of being in a situation where you're obviously helpless and you can't fix it, just to overwhelm that by feeling powerful, by being angry,
Mm-hmm.
I think, sometimes it's worth it. And
Yeah.
existentially in the moment, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I get I mean, I grew up very angry, and sometimes I still get mad and,
Mm-hmm.
still Twinkies, whatever I gotta do.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I totally understand the impulse to get angry in those situations.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And we were talking before I started recording, but just part of the reason this podcast exists. There's a lot of reasons why, but part of it is the current environment that I'm in with some of the living situations that I just got out of into a brand new one, and they're very similar with people that are non-relative to me that are now inhabiting the same space, and the different challenges that are involved with that, and then holding down a job, and uh, uncertainty about just the world in general.
Yeah.
And then we are living in a new house that we bought to accommodate my mother-in-law. We're not married, but my partner's mom. And then trying to sell our old house, which we still haven't sold. So we're
Mm,
like 5 months deep into double mortgages. And I was just finding myself in this waiting game endlessly because we were waiting for her mom's house and so I was like, my frustration level was at an all-time high because I
yeah.
just felt like I was constantly swimming with my clothes on and not getting anywhere.
Mhm.
And then the feeling of this lack of control of all these different things, all these things were just waiting to happen. And I was just frustrated constantly. And um, I hate feeling like that. And so I was like, I need to be doing something other than going to work and coming here and being annoyed with what's happening around me, because it's not
Yeah.
good for me. It's not good for anybody. Because I just, when I'm in that state, I just have a hair trigger. Like,
Mhm.
and I don't want people around me to be worried about making me mad or what's going to set me off. So, um, but and the other thing was too that was like after I went through all the stuff with BAMS in that really hard period where I was drinking a lot, and then to get sober, and I've been sober for, I think, 9 years or 8 years, either one.
Nice work.
I was like, I went through all that, and now this is what I worked so hard for, like
Yeah.
this level of frustration all the time. And that's when it starts to turn into resentment
Mm-hmm.
and, all the other things but anyway,
Yeah, and it's harder because, when you had all that stress before, you can just medicate it. But now you have to feel it all and deal with it and those problems, and then just live with problems you can't fix. And it's like almost a whole different existence for you now.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. But it's also, being just me and Che are just, he always makes it worth it. And I don't want to, undersell what Laura contributes either, because,
Yeah.
we're partners. But, Che is like my dad renaissance period, because I'm getting to do it all over again. And,
Yeah.
it feels really good. I just did a whole episode. It's 2 episodes actually, just of a letter to him, to Che, like for him to have basically who I am and what I did up until this point. And whereas like with my dad and my grandpa and all these other people, there's all this mystery,
Yeah.
like what did they do for work? This, and especially a lot of Native history being, oral and not having these written records and stuff. So it was kind of like for him to have, but it was also in a way I kind of want to close the chapter on talking about some of those things. Now that I've made this all about me.
That's a good gift to him though, because like both of us kind of grew up. I know we didn't grow up in a home culture, and we didn't feel at home in the new culture. We just kind of nomads, culturally speaking. So to give him this, like I don't know my dad at all, really, just stuff my mom said, and those could all be made up for sure.
Right.
It's like the fact that you're doing that, that's gonna give him some roots that we never got, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and he sat with me while I was editing it, so he's already seen some of it, and
That's cool.
it was so tight. He was just sitting on my lap with the headphones on and like watching the video, and then every once in a while he would stop and be like, is that true? Is that really? Especially because I was at the really hard part where talking about BAMs, and
Okay.
he knows about BAMs, and he's aware he has this older brother that passed away, and but he didn't know the particulars. He just knows that I have a kid that I miss a lot. So he got to actually hear more of the story. And I think because it was on a screen, he was paying closer attention. Like, it wasn't just me talking at him.
Yeah.
He was watching it, and he was so just like focused on it. It was so cool, man. And also, I mean, from a production standpoint, it gives me a couple weeks of episodes so that I can work on the next batch. But it's kind of cheap in that way, but it was good too, though. Okay, let's get back on topic here. So, one more question. So your second master's degree is, what did you say that was going to be in?
Clinical mental health counseling.
Okay. So do you foresee a shift in career in getting more into that, or is there going to be
maybe? So actually a big part of my job pastoring now is doing counseling. And there's kind of a distinction in the counseling world between pastoral counseling and other counseling. I don't really agree with the distinction, but it's there just for, whatever professional reasons, I guess. So pastoral counseling tends to be short term, 6 to 8 weeks or less, kind of focus on solving a particular problem and particularly tying it to, a person's faith walk or religion or spirituality. So we tend to specialize in that. And then clinical mental health counselors, they tend to do things that are more long term, maybe after 2 months. They can see people for years if they need to. Right. So yeah, I actually got into it just so I could be a more skilled counselor, because that's a big part of my job is working with people.
Yeah.
So we do lots of group stuff and one-on-one stuff as well. just in this profession. So I just wanted to get better.
Yeah.
But I think if down the road, whatever God calls me to, but if I'm at a church that can't afford me, I can actually just pastor part-time and then keep helping people in the religious sphere as well.
Right.
I think there's some advantages to it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, that's a lot of schooling too. Well, so now that we're talking about sort of your counseling in the pastoral region, um, how do you see faith as helping mental health?
Let's see. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Kind of depends on the person and their background, but it tends to be a big asset. Um, Humans, we seem to be just wired for meaning and purpose. I've heard people have deep religious experiences just seeing a leaf fall from a tree,
Hmm.
and it becomes almost defining to them in a way. I had
Yeah.
one friend who he saw a leaf fall from a tree, and he felt like God was speaking to him in that moment and telling him that he was like the leaf, and he just needs to let the old season of his life die. Well, from the outside, you're like, "What the hell are you talking about? A leaf just fell off a tree. Like, this happens every year. Who cares?"
Yeah.
But, that's what humans do. Like, we see
Right.
importance in things, and I think it's powerful, and sometimes it's real.
Totally.
So, yeah, my perspective is I think it's human nature to be, at least spiritual, if not religious. It
Yeah.
kinda depends how you define the words, but we all tend to reach out for meaning and for purpose, and we
Mhm.
tend to interpret things, even if it's just a leaf falling, sometimes in cosmic terms.
Right.
But yeah, I think having extra skill and knowing how to tie a person's life journey with questions about meaning, questions about God, ideas about church, good or bad, um, spirituality, good or bad, all that. I think it's a big advantage, and so most of the people I speak with, because I also have lots of relationships with people outside of the church as well. So, a lot of people I end up counseling with, faith is a big advantage to them because we're used to dealing in those terms of meaning,
Yeah.
where sometimes counselors really focus on techniques and solving narrow problems.
Right.
And, my idea is counseling shouldn't just be about solving a person's problems. You also want to help them flourish and just have a good full life. So as opposed to just being relieved of their suffering, you also want them to wake up and be excited about living,
Yeah.
excited about getting to spend a day. And I think that gives people extra strength while they are suffering and more resilience. And so
Hmm.
I think there's some big advantages to faith interacting with a person's psychological health most
Yeah.
of the time.
Well, and I think that the you would be adding the practical side to the religious side, as in, to put it in sports terms, it would be practicing every afternoon and then you go play on Sunday and you're throwing a Hail Mary. But like,
Mhm.
you're able to throw a Hail Mary because you just practiced a Hail Mary all week long, and now you're
Yeah.
so and I totally think they should work hand in hand. But also, people definitely feel some kind of way about religion, which uh and I could see that not interfering, but you wouldn't be able to approach it the same, like, as you would somebody in your church, obviously.
Yeah. I think maybe another benefit that faith has. I mean, studies show that people with active faith, they tend to be more resilient. They tend to live longer. So it tends to be a benefit, although it's not in every case. But I think another way faith can help is um, society is very strange after the Industrial Revolution. For basically all of human history, we've been in these little bands of maybe 150 people. And now we're in cities of millions, and our families are scattered. And we kind of got to figure out how to raise our kids by ourselves. The whole village doesn't help us.
Yeah.
We hide them from the village because the village are weirdos and they'll give them candy from a van. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's a whole different situation. And I'm not sure humans are crazy adaptive, but I think a lot of aspects of modern living don't don't jive with how we're wired. So
Hmm.
I think one thing faith can do too is if you integrate into a faith community as well, there's disadvantages to that because you got to deal with people again. But I
Yeah.
think the advantages are also good in terms of you kind of find that village again if you do it right. And I mean, it takes a lot of work, but I think that's sometimes why faith also helps people's mental health, is because it gives them a social space where they can tie back into more relationships again.
Yeah, and I know, I'm sure you know the name of the experiment where they have the rats that they're giving the cocaine to. There was like a liquid cocaine or whatever, and they kept, when they were isolated, they were going back to it, back to it, back to it. But then when they put them in the group with the other mice, like they largely left it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea being that what a lot of addicts are missing is that personal relationship with people, or a meaningful relationship with people. And then, of course, once you're in the cycle of addiction, and you isolate even more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a sense of community. Laura is an adoptee, and she's also a birth mom. And I would say probably 99% of her friends are in the adoptee sphere, whether
Gotcha.
whether they have placed a child for adoption or they were adopted, and um, their their community ties are so strong, and it is helping them get through the trauma of being adopted that people did not know they were going to be introducing their kids to when they did it, I think,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I cover adoption a lot on this. I've been ensconced into the adoption community. Um, so how can faith interfere with somebody getting help?
I think a few ways. The one I see most often is um basically spiritual trauma. Trauma's thrown around quite a bit now, just as a pop culture word. But
Yeah,
in mental health, it has a very specific meaning, actually. I don't agree with the view that everyone's traumatized and everyone has their injuries and stuff, but a
yeah.
lot of us got jacked up. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, sometimes it's religious people or the church that does that. And so, yeah, I think sometimes a person's faith can also be a burden to them, not just because they've been traumatized by church people, but sometimes people think God hates them, or he's targeting them, or they've done
Ignoring
something
them.
terrible God could never forgive them. And
Yeah,
so they have a lot of distress and a lot of pain from their spirituality. And so helping people work through that is really important. But fact is, sometimes it's a real burden to people, this
mhm.
kind of spiritual sphere of life. And yeah, it creates from the trauma of maybe spiritual communities before, spiritual abuse, is happens too much as well. So I think like physical abuse is very obvious.
Yeah,
It's like if I punch you, you see where my body ends and where your body starts. So if I punch you, that's pretty obvious that I
yeah.
violated a boundary. Because,
Mhm.
but emotional abuse is more complicated because you can punch people's soul. You can punch them with emotions, but you don't see it happen. You don't see the clash of skin and bone.
Right.
It's harder to discern. So then you can imagine how much harder it is to discern the spiritual abuse, where there are
Yeah.
power imbalances. Maybe you were a kid when it happened, and there's a full-grown adult who's spiritually abusing you as well as emotionally
Hmm.
abusing. So, and then, if you've been not my religious tradition, but some religious traditions are very rigid, and they demand a high level of conformity by its members. And so, like I know a guy who got disfellowshipped by his Jehovah Witness church family because he smoked a cigarette when he was 12. And so
Yeah.
disfellowship means that basically they're exiled.
Yeah.
People from the church aren't supposed to hang out with them. They're not supposed to talk to them or associate with them, which is basically a social form of death.
Yeah.
It's a social lynching. And
Mhm.
as humans, we need acceptance. We need to be connected to other human beings. And so things like that can also mess people up quite a bit too. So I guess my answer is on the surface level, faith can be a hindrance to mental health because it can be a source of stress in terms of maybe people think God's mad at them or God won't accept them or they haven't experienced love. And there's sometimes too, there's leftover spiritual trauma that
Yeah.
bleeds into the relationships and how they view things. So yeah, like if God comes up in a situation and someone's immediately pissed off and they just preach a weird sermon against the church nobody asked for, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like this happens all the time.
Yeah.
You can tell they're not really responding to the situation.
Right.
Yeah. they've been bleeding inside, and finally it gets to come out somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's obviously not good for the mental health if that's always in there festering.
Yeah. Well, and a physical injury is going to the body begins to heal itself. An emotional or a spiritual injury, you actually have to be very deliberate about healing.
Yeah.
And like we've been saying, if you don't have those tools or the even the mindset, it's not going to heal, and it's going to end up potentially just injuring the next person.
Yeah.
What about like this was kind of my next question about like, is seeking help for your mental health, have you seen that be sort of interpreted as like a lack of faith? And if it like stuff, people can pray away.
Oh, gotcha. I see. Yes and no. I've seen it kind of actually go both directions at the same time. So on the one hand, I've seen people say, especially with medications, that's a lack of faith.
Yeah.
Because I guess if you just believed hard enough, you wouldn't be sad anymore. So why are you popping happy pills? It's kind of stuff like
Right.
that.
Just go outside.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lack of faith. If you just give it to the Lord, but the quote verses kind of one at a time, maybe wrongly, incorrectly and partially. I mean, the Bible is a big ass book and it's very complicated and sophisticated. It reflects the human condition and how complicated we are quite well, I think. But people like to simplify it so they can control it,
Right.
And so I think when it goes in that direction of you lack faith because you're taking meds or because you're going to see a godless secular pagan counselor who's taking advice from Satan every morning and wants to ruin your soul. I've seen that kind of stuff on that side. And then on the other side, I've seen most of the church now I think is very open to mental health therapy, medication, all that stuff. But I think they've adopted what's the opposite of rigorous? Like a super lazy pop culture perspective on mental health.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think the mental health profession has done a good job defining what mental health is to the world. It's because it's a medicalized model, and I can get into all that. But a lot of it comes down to needing to get paid by insurance. Is how a lot of people have to determine the practicalities of how they practice. But I think, I think the pop psychology that's kind of filtered to the culture at large. It's a very shallow, hedonistic perspective on what it takes to be mentally healthy. And now, of course, in our culture, it all gets politicized one way or the other. So I think it's hard to actually present the science of mental health, the science of psychology in a way that's not politically charged and in a way that's not been bastardized by kind of pop culture concepts of this stuff. And that leaks into the church as well. So I have seen people, dismiss mental health because you lack faith, but I've also seen people run to stupid versions of mental health and kind of piecemeal versions of mental health.
Right.
It doesn't help them. So, for example, I'll hear a sermon where the pastor will basically give bad psychology and how to handle your anger. And so now Jesus kind of becomes a pop culture therapist, and the teachings of the Bible become useful tools for you to become fulfilled. But that's, to be frank, 2,000 years ago in Southwest Asia, where Jesus lived, when he was teaching the things he taught, he wasn't thinking about how people can be fulfilled fulfilled in the sense of having their wants met based on how they feel right now, which is what a lot of pop psychology is doing.
Right. Yeah. You got about 90 seconds. Yeah. To get your idea across. Yeah. I wonder if that like started with the Ricky Lakes and the Sally Jesse Raphaels and, in the 90s when you could kind of go on TV and, say how your parents caused all your problems and the doctor feels. I don't know. That's an interesting, that would be an interesting path to go down to see where
Totally.
it started to shift into this microwave popcorn version that is just readily available and And I think, and I'm betting the internet is part of it. And
Oh, a huge part of it. Yeah, I hear people talk about mental health, and they tend to talk in, well, it used to be bumper stickers, but now they talk in memes. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
And they kind of throw cliches around like it's a coherent life philosophy. And so I heard one gal saying, I deserve to be happy. Well, yeah, I agree with that, but what the hell are we talking about? Like, what does happy mean? And what does deserve mean? Like, philosophically, these are very complicated ideas.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of throw a label on it,
Mm-hmm.
if she meant I deserve to feel good almost all the time, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, man. You exist in this world, which means suffering, and
Yeah.
and not just your own suffering, but bearing the burden of other people's suffering, so we can all get through this together.
Yeah.
And so it's yeah. So we throw around these cliches without really actually talking about what the words we mean use. And so I see that in the church where they import pop psychology and they kind of slap these bumper sticker memes on issues, and they kind of pretend like Jesus said it, or he's
Yeah.
definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it goes both directions.
So yeah, you already kind of touched on it. It seems like it's the church may be a little more open to the idea, but maybe they're missing the mark a little bit. Um, is that something you would? How do you remedy that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a grand way to fix that worldwide. I'm just a dude with like a 200-person church doing my best.
Yeah.
So I try and be as thoughtful and well read and sincere as I possibly can. And then I try and when I preach, of course, there's people who want to hear me. So it's not like I will
Yeah.
slap people over the head with my Bible. But like when they come and they hear me talk about these things, I try and just think through these topics with people. Because I mean, one of my responsibilities I feel as a pastor is because I get to do this full time. I can have the time to read the books and think about stuff when everyone else is at work and figuring out how to pay bills. And so I can spend extra time thinking about these important questions. And so I get a jump start. Then when people show up on Sunday, I can kind of think it through with them.
Right.
So part of my remedy, I think, is just in my pastoral work. Most of that's work with people. So I think being a deeper thinker, um, Jesus was a very intelligent, deep thinker, obviously. So if I can kind of emulate that in my life and take what Jesus's countercultural wisdom is and apply it to the human condition, and I think it just works better.
Yeah.
Most people will kind of latch on to slogans or memes they catch here and there, and it
Yeah.
becomes this kind of disparate life philosophy, and they implement stuff when they can, and they hope it
Mhm.
turns out. I think Christianity can give, and I'm not talking about cultural forms of Christianity. I'm talking about like the original philosophy of Christianity from the New Testament. I think that can give people a more coherent life philosophy. And so, for people who are interested, I think one of the ways I can help them is by giving them a social space where they can connect with other people and make friends and help each other along in life. And then hopefully I can kind of present some more ancient and permanently true wisdom on some of these questions.
Yeah.
It goes a little deeper than, whatever comment thread you found on the internet.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Permanently true. Yeah, that's a good way to put that. It's like I've gotten real spiritual in the last few years, but not religious. And uh I I used to go to church with my great grandpa when I was a kid,
Mm.
and just because I liked being around him. I didn't
Yeah.
really care what they were saying. I just like sitting next to him, and I would draw on the back of the little program thing. And then they started making me like they started pulling me out of church to go to Sunday school. And then they started hammering me with all I'm like, I'm not here to catch religion, dude. Like
Even back then you knew, huh?
it was
Like, I
like
just want to chill with my grandpa.
yeah, like this is not the time or the place for you to be pushing religion. Like and so, so then I just have this, kind of just icky feeling about church people.
Mhm.
There's this and there can be kind of a fakeness to them.
Mm.
And so I knew I had a idea that there was something happening outside of this dimension that we're all kind of adjusting to, but I never knew what that was. And it wasn't until I really started grounding myself, and this was even when BAMS was still alive, but being able to at least be receptive to some spiritual connection. And now it's something I can do almost at will. Like if I'm feeling some kind of way, and if it's scared or frustrated or hopeless or whatever it is, I call it my conversation with the one. And it's from, and I've said this on this podcast before, but it's from an interview I saw Bootsy Collins do with Questlove. And he was talking about, when he first joined up with James Brown and how James Brown did everything on the two, the like bump, 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 and Bootsy was doing it on the one. And so then, of course, Bootsy in his way is he's going, you got to do it on the one, baby. We're all the one. Every one of us is on the one. If we're all on the one, everything's groovy, everything's funky. And I was sitting there listening to it. I'm like, oh my God, he's not talking about music. He's like, we're all the one. The universe is the one. We're all connected. Like, we all need to be doing it on the one. And because of that history with church and just the kind of uneasiness it gave me, saying I'm praying or praying to God just has this stickiness to it that I was like, this may be what I'm doing, but I don't like the terminology. So I'm like, all right.
Make it feel more fakey or something using that terminology?
Yeah, it just,
Gotcha.
And I would use it. I don't remember where I heard this, but somebody said that God is a term that is basically giving a blanket to give something some shape, like putting a blanket over it to give it some shape. That's how it felt to me. I didn't have this idea of the guy up in the sky that was controlling our every move. But to say I believed in God just basically was me saying there's something, and if God is a way to describe it, I'll use that. But yeah, once I got online with Bootsy's philosophy, because then it's related to funk too, and I love funk music, and it just tied it all together nicely. But being able to connect with this unseen world has been huge for my mental health. So huge because
So what does that look like? So let's say you get pissed off and you're about to connect with the one. What does that look like for you?
you don't mean like connect with
Yeah.
because
Connect with the one too.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it happens as much when I'm mad. It's when I'm like really feeling the pressure of life and wondering, because one of the things I struggle with is I'm going to be 46 in January. And I'm like, this whole middle chunk of my life is feeling really stagnant. And I don't like this idea that I'm just working towards retirement when my body is already mostly broken down.
Yeah.
And then I look back and go, what was the point of all that?
Yeah.
And especially as it relates to BAMS and having that huge loss that I was able to almost quite literally crawl out of a hole and get upright again and get to the point where, anyway, so what it looks like for me now is it's me saying, I'll say it to BAMS. Oh man, I'm going to start choking up. It'll be me saying it to BAMS, to my dad, to my grandpa. Just like dog, I'm struggling, dude.
Mm,
And um and it's and what and I'm not even looking for an answer. I'm just like, I need some
mm,
comfort, dude.
yeah.
Like, I don't even want the answer because I know the answer is just going to be the hard answer. The
Mm,
easy answer is the whiskey bottle or whatever
yeah,
else.
totally.
Um, so in those moments, it's just me um, really just grounding myself and trying to have a moment to myself. And this is where people can think it starts to get a little weird. Um, but there will be a actual physical sensation of
Mm,
hands on my shoulder.
uh-huh.
And then it's like, once I get that, I'm like, okay, okay. And then it passes.
Gotcha.
But I wasn't able to get there until I was able to basically nightly connect with the one.
Mm,
And it always started with a gratitude because it's real easy to lose sight of the things that you should be grateful for.
mm-hmm,
Um, and
for
as much
sure.
as my life can be frustrating now, I have access to clean water. I have access to food. I
Uh,
mean, we are paying for 2 houses. There's people that have no houses,
yeah.
so there's so much. I have a job that pays well and that I mostly like and coworkers I like and blah, 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 blah,
Mm,
all that stuff. But it's real easy to lose sight of that. Um, so just the gratitude itself is grounding. And then being able to say, um, just, here's where I need help. Here's where I need guidance. Like, I'm
yeah.
not over here asking for a pot of gold. It's what is my next step? Where should
Mm,
I. But I had to start doing that nightly,
yeah.
and I still do that nightly. So
That's
that's,
cool. So you don't get an answer. It's actually reconnecting is what gives you the strength. That's the answer itself, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And, I'm also big on manifesting. And so I spend a lot of time, I'll write out a list of things I want. But also knowing that none of my ancestors are genies and
Mm,
they're not just going to start dropping stuff in my lap. And so, like, I have to work towards these things that I want, and I have
yeah.
to be willing to. The universe is not going to work on my timeline, but the
Hmm.
universe is rarely late.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, and I think sometimes that all sounds kind of, I don't know, hippy dippy or something, but as far as my mental health in this conversation, that's what's working for me, along
Yeah.
with therapy.
That's an experience though, I think is almost universal. Is the Mm. So for example, in Christianity, um, almost all Christians believe in the immortality of the soul. So that means we don't we shouldn't talk about people in the past tense if they've died
Right.
because they're immortal. So their souls are still around. In the book of Revelation, which is the last book in the Bible, um, there's people who have been murdered for their faith in the heavenly realm, whatever that is, and they're seeing the suffering on earth and they're asking God what's taking them so long to do something about it. And so this universal experience I'm talking about, it's in Christianity too, where it feels like, whatever the distinction is between who we are now and who we'll be, after we die, and then the people I don't want to say lost, but the people who aren't with us in the way we'd like them to be with us anymore,
Hmm.
that's a permeable boundary. And you see that in the Bible too. So
Yeah.
it's just this idea that you can connect not only with God, but with, other people. That's actually in the Bible too. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think what you're talking about, it actually doesn't sound weirdo to me because psychologists have seen this in a lot of cultures, in a lot of places. It's in Christianity too, which of course is a huge global religion, but the ability just to connect with the spiritual and derive strength from it. It's actually pretty common. It's pretty badass. You can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple guests on this go around who, are very tuned in to where their ancestors are warning them and coming to them in dreams. And my dad comes to me in dreams, and so does Bam's, but it's more of a like, he's not dropping any knowledge on me. It's just like, oh, hey, good to see you kind of a thing. And and it's funny, like I just thought of this. It reminds me of when Vincent and Jules are in the diner in Pulp Fiction, and he and Samuel Jackson's character is talking about how God came down and made the bullets not hit him in the apartment in the scene before. He's like, I don't remember his exact phrasing, but he says it doesn't matter if God came down and made those bullets move, or he turned Coke to Pepsi, or whatever he says. He's like, but the point is, I felt the presence of God, and like it's kind of like a throwaway scene in a way, just that one little section of dialogue, but like that part makes sense. Like it doesn't matter what happened. What matters is he felt the presence of God in that moment. This crazy ass hitman that's blowing people away his whole life. Like he felt the presence of God, and it made him want to leave the life. I don't know. That's interesting. Stay tuned for part 2.